Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Who dares awaken me from my slumber? Sonya and Mynatt, once again, you have found your way into the darkness of the Fox Den for an episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Yeah, please, I am so hungry. Absolutely delicious. A little bit of blood splatter on the wall and floors is nothing I can't consume a little bit later. We have once again decided it is time for Sonya and myself and the Midnight Society to take a walk into the darkness known as the Dogman phenomenon.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf. And everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. This is the home and the stomping ground of the Midnight Society, and once again, we sit around the fire to burn the late night timber in an attempt to figure out what is occurring across the country. Sonya Lynn Mynatt is once again here to help us figure out the mysteries. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Hi, I'm doing well. I'm doing well, getting ready for Halloween. Woo! The veil is thin today.
Excellent. Yes, the spooky season is not just a season, it's a lifestyle. And ironically, there is a small town in South Carolina that officially changed their name to a very Halloweeny theme, which is awesome. But they only go by it for the month of October. But you know how a lot of places just celebrate Halloween one night on the night. Well, not there. It's all month. So that'd be pretty cool for sure.
Well, there's a town somewhere that's an all Christmas town, so why not? Like, it's
Yes,
Santa Claus, Indiana. That's right. Okay, yeah.
it's
I was like,
so
where's it
funny.
called? I got.
All I can think about is Spawn, and during the Halloween season, where when the guy's like, "Where are you from?" He's like, "Where I'm from, every day is Halloween," and I'm like, "Yo, that is legendary."
I bet that movie was so before its time. Like, people just, I don't know. I love that movie, actually.
Yes, it's straight up messed up because it's. I was actually talking to one of my science members the other day, and we were just nerding out, and then we started talking about some other stuff. And what's super cool about that movie, as well as The Crow, is they're both just like The Punisher, kind of, where they're not good, they're not bad, but they don't go out of their way to do good things. But
Well,
again, like I said, they're not good or evil, so they're kind of like a neutral thing, and it's
I
just
feel
pretty
like
cool.
that's just karma. Like that's just the universe being really super busy doing other things, and they're like, we'll just send in a zombie. Like, we'll let him get a little bit of vengeance in. It's just vigilant, kind of like vengeance at that point.
Yeah,
They were just
seriously.
like the crow was just about a zombie vigilante. Like he came back. He had reasons. And everybody was like, I want to love like that. Okay.
Yeah, straight up. He's super cool with some like nightmare fuel right there. You're like, what the heck is this?
You better come back and avenge me, or you don't love me.
That is what's so epic about that. Like you said, just the darkness to it and how it just really ties in to, and it's almost like Dexter. Dexter's another one. I mean, the dude
Oh, I love
never
Dexter.
never disposes of somebody, quote unquote, that would be good. But let's be real, he's still disposing of people and piling their body count up. So again,
I
he
only the bad ones.
yes, exactly. So he's not like a good guy or a bad guy. Again, he's just like a neutral. But I mean, he doesn't go out of his way to do good things. But it's pretty funny for
Right.
sure.
He's working faster than the state. You know what?
Right. Straight up. So, and you're gonna crack up some more. Man, I've been jamming out because it's the spooky season, and I am just such a nerd in general. The Three Stooges is a love for me ever since I was a child. So I was watching 5 hours of Halloween Three Stooges last night, just
Yeah.
absolutely laughing my butt cheeks off. Before I linked up with you, I was sitting here watching the Munsters in the background
Yeah.
as I was watching the Bruins and then jamming out to the Monster Mash as well. So
You should. This is the way. This is the way. Very. I love that because like some of those things are so nostalgic, of just that, just it's hard to get that feeling that we used to have,
seriously,
trunk or
yes.
treats and like it used to be like Halloween, like we used to get to dress up at school like 2 or 3 times during the month of like Halloween. They would have like a party and then you would have like the whole school would have like a dress up contest where everybody dressed up and then you would have Halloween. Like it's like there was like a whole thing. We're just like everybody just park your cars in a parking lot and walk around. It's great. It's fantastic. Enjoy yourself.
So funny you said that because I mean, to my late mom, rest in peace, that was her big thing is like the Halloween aspect. And I've spoken about it before. She used to deck out the whole front yard and always make costumes, like you said. And one time she
Hmm.
made me a gnarly werewolf costume, and I would sit
Aw.
outside, and everyone would come up, whether it was adults or kids, and they would just think it was a cool structure or a stuffed, and they'd be like, "Wow, this is awesome." Then I'd be like, "Wow," and they would like flip. I would just be like, "Oh my goodness!"
One of my very like fond memories as a child was somebody doing that exact same thing on the porch, and me going and my parents going, "It's not real," and I was like, "Okay, yeah." They thought that was funny. It was definitely
That's
real.
funny. I get it all from my mom, like the vampire and like werewolf stuff. I remember one time she came over and knocked on the door and came in, and she's like, "Are you drinking tea watching the monsters?" I'm like, "That it is, I am."
Hmm. Oh, this is the way.
I'm so like that though. I mean, that's I still watch the old school Goosebumps sometimes before I'm going to like bed and stuff because that's like lit. And then a lot of people don't realize that the little twist I got, the Midnight Society, that's from Are
Yeah,
You Afraid of the Dark?
I was
Where
fixing to say
yes,
that's
they
what I've
sit
been
down around the
rewatching.
fire and they're like,
Yeah,
"This
they threw that
is
big handful of
Midnight
sand or
Society."
whatever it was.
Yes. So I just still love all those things because for some reason it can't be replicated. I feel like those just had
Nope.
such a cool feel to them that I don't think even with the cool technology and everything, they could really. I mean, the newest Goosebumps they redid was okay, but it still
No,
doesn't.
it was okay, yeah.
Yeah, it
It
doesn't
was
have
for
that
what it
feel
was,
though.
because you can't compare it to what we're used to because it's no comparison. It's not the same. It's not the
No.
same as reading the books and not being able to stand like, oh my God, is the next episode of Goosebumps going to be one of the books that I read? I sure hope so. Of course it is, because I read all of them.
I remember saving up all my lunch money, right? When the book fairs would come, and my mom would be like, ticked. She'd be like, "Dude, you're supposed to be like buying food, not like Goosebumps books." But I'd buy the ones too where they had like you could choose your own endings. So you end up reading the book like four or five
Mm.
times to try to figure out all the endings.
I literally found The Beast from the East the other day at my house, and it's sitting in my living room. And my mom's like, "Oh," I was like, "Well, this is like one of the books from. This is a cool one." And it's like I feel like I have to keep these, Of course, when
Yes.
you became a teenager, R.L. Stein had the other ones. The
Oh,
what
the
I
more
remember.
mature ones a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
def.
like yeah, it was just the R.L. Stein, and then you had R.L. Slime.
Obviously, you got to
But
know what my favorite one was. I mean, you don't even have to put a thought into it.
I was like, well, what, maybe what, the, I don't know the name of it.
Werewolf of Fever Swamp right there.
It's just a favorite swamp. Yeah.
Yes, that is
Like,
absolutely so dope with the hermit out in the woods and everyone thinks it's him, but it's
right.
not really him, it's the other little boy and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually, I've been on a kick, which they have Goosebumps on right now, and they have Are You Afraid of the Dark streaming, I think, on one of the services. And
That's cool.
do you remember Erie, Indiana? Did you ever watch Erie, Indiana?
I don't know if I ever did watch that one.
It was the kid that played in Hocus Pocus, Max, the one that played him. He was like, he lived in this weird town where all these weird things happened. But it was like, it was definitely like a teenager show because there was a lot of like dark stuff in there. And it's actually on Tubi right now. You should check it out. I think you would really like
Yeah,
it.
definitely toss that over to me after we get done linking up tonight. I'll have to check that out. And that's on a
Yeah.
final note before we dive into the witches and such. I mean, it's a spooky season. Everyone's got to love this, though. That's like Jack the Pumpkin King. Even though that's for a kids movie,
That's my favorite movie.
that's pretty messed up, though. Okay, I don't feel like this day and age that could be pushed as a child's movie because it's still pretty disturbing. I mean, even for like an adult, when you're like, yo, that thing under the bed's pretty frigged up, man. Like.
Well, I watched that movie on my sixth birthday. My mom got to go on a field trip with us, and we got to go to Kentucky, which is weird. Is what we're about to talk about. We went to Kentucky, and we watched that movie, and all the other kids were like mortified, and I was like, they wanted like some of them wanted to leave and stuff, and I was like, oh no, we're not leaving. No, 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 no. I've been waiting for this. Oh, I loved it because I knew they had spent years. Like they started on that movie, I feel like before I was even born. Or
That is
like the
so
year I was
funny.
born and the year after I was born. Like I think they started it on it in '88 or something like
Yeah,
that.
you're gonna
Yeah.
laugh too because I always use the example to people where I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And I'm like, oh crap, I guess, to a journalist that's cool, but to someone that experiences something, it's not potentially cool. But then I'm like, well, I guess unless it's my friend Sonya, because she would be just like me, be like, yo, that's cool, dude. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, she was in a car with some friends and tried to stop to get out and take a look at this Dogman or a werewolf, and her friends are like, yo, no, get the frig out of here. And they just started
Yeah,
cracking up. So
I don't. I'm one of those. I don't know if I'm an idiot or not, but like I'm curious. Like I feel like if something like that wanted to get me anyway, or like if stuff wanted to get me, I feel like it already would have.
for
But it
sure.
wasn't being and it wasn't being aggressive. Like I just wanted to sit there and get like make sure like we all seeing what we're seeing, right? Y'all
That's
describe to me what's going on here.
that
And
is
they were
so
just in
funny.
panic mode, and I was just like, wow,
Right.
look at that.
Classic stuff right
That's
there.
new.
Before I throw you the mic here to dive into some of the witches, I got one more funny thing. It involves werewolves. But growing up, like I said, my mom was always into the creature features and straight up horror too. I'm not into horror. Creature features is cool, but she would just watch some that were totally cheese and some that were considered legendary classics. And I remember I used to like sneak down the hallway at night, do like a little military crawl to like look into her bedroom to see what they were watching. And they'd be watching some gnarly like aliens or something, dude. So I would temporarily traumatize myself, I guess, because I was like, oh man. But she would always tell me that I could stay up and watch American Werewolf in London with them on Halloween once I turned 15, right? But all the way until
15.
I was, no exaggeration, dude, like 19, because straight up, it was like nightmare stuff. And I would always get to the part where they would get mauled out in the moor. And I'm like, yeah, no, thank you. And I couldn't finish the movie because that traumatized me. So,
My fourth birthday, my mom's like, you can pick the movie and you pick whatever cake you want. And I was like, all right, I want chocolate cake, chocolate icing, sprinkles on it, and I want to watch the new Howling movie. And mom's like, are you sure? And I was like, yep, the new Howling movie. I know there's an, because I'd seen the other ones. Like I was 4 or 5 years old. Like no, no, no kidding. Like my mom, like they let us watch whatever. And the Howling is what I picked. And I was like, I remember sitting there and watching it. And it's like, oh my God. And later on that night, my sister went into the kitchen because I don't remember, but the light was out and she walked in to like turn the light on and she got a glimpse of the window and she thought what she saw were red eyes glowing in the window and freaked out and come running in the living room and said there was a werewolf in the window and was just freaking out. Mom went back in there and it was the coffee maker, where they used to have the time on the coffee maker, and he was reflecting in the window, and he looked like two eyes.
That's so funny.
And yeah, so it's like, yeah, so horror movies, especially Werewolf. Silver Bullet is my all-time favorite movie. As far as like, I guess horror movie because I love Gary Busey, and who doesn't love, um, who doesn't love watching the preacher turn into a werewolf and then get beat down by the townspeople? It's great.
And it's based off a true potential encounter where the werewolf whacks somebody in the head at the beginning on the railroad track. I mean, that's where Stephen King got
Hmm.
that whole entire scene from in Defiance, Ohio. So yes, no,
Yeah,
that's
because
super
it
gnarly.
was just a story and the way they found that body. Yeah, and nobody ever knew what came to it, and everybody said it was an animal attack, and they was like, well, it had to be a pretty big animal who done what it did.
Yeah, straight up, straight
Yeah,
up. And that is so funny, but I would agree with you for sure. So, I mean, real quick, my favorite werewolf movies, not necessarily in this order, is Dog Soldiers, The Howling, American Werewolf in London, American Werewolf in Paris.
I love that
And
one. Ah,
honestly, I don't really Bad Moon's okay and stuff, but after those four, I don't really have another one I guess I would put up to match those four because in my opinion, those four are just straight up
yeah,
awesome. I mean,
yeah,
the Wolfman with Benicio del Toro was pretty
that was
cool.
a
I
good
guess.
one.
Yeah,
But
we'll
I
throw that
love
up there for
Benicio
number
del
five, I
Toro. So
guess. Yeah, yeah.
I'm
And the
gonna get to
underworlds are
Benicio.
okay, but nothing like yeah.
Anthony Hopkins made a kind of a hot werewolf. I don't know if it's just me, but
Where did Sonya go? I don't know, man. She was talking to some like dude that looked a little like I don't know, man. Like he kind of looked like a wolf man, but
who has
she
six
she
dogs?
she thought
Like
he looked cool, and I don't know. I haven't heard from her since then.
I would have him like on a. I would have him a part of my pack. I'd be like, oh look, he's just a cute little wolf guy.
That is so funny. But I wanted to again, because you're down in that area, get some of your feedback on the Kentucky witches because I think with what occurred to them that we previously speak about in Eastern Tennessee, I really think that ties into a lot as to what's occurring. And I'm starting to think that the LBL and some of the other areas that were quote unquote cursed by indigenous cultures and now being cursed by witches might have a lot to do with some of this massive negative energy that people speak
Oh,
about.
oh yeah, you're totally correct. The land, and I don't know if I've mentioned that, but the land out here is like that. It will make you. And like the land knows what's in your heart. It's not just the things that are out there in the woods, but it's the land, the trees, the mountains itself. It will, like, a lot of people get, they can't live out in the country. They can't live out, it's too quiet, and it makes them reflect their own energies and what's inside them. It brings a lot of that out. And so I'm sure with the negativity going on between scared townsfolk and them being ignorant, not knowing what's going on in the world, um, they're just reflecting their own hatred back on themselves because that's what the woods does. It makes you reflect what's in your own heart back on yourself. So that fear and stuff, and I'm sure it's good for the living when you can live out here peacefully because you can live one with nature and you can both coincide and nature will take care of you. So when something comes to disrupt that energy, especially that good flow of energy, of course bad things are going to start to happen. You wonder why um your land's doing bad. It seems like everybody else's crops is doing great, and all of a sudden yours is doing bad. And the worse it gets, the worse the field is. The worse you feel about the field, the worse the field starts to get. So you're reflecting that own energy, and so it reflects in the things around you, your own crops, and the way you work the land. So, and then I'm sure if you had a witch in town or somebody who was a healer or somebody like that, that you could blame that on, you're definitely going to blame somebody else other than yourself and your own negativity and your own energy. You're not going to be, you know, you're never taught these things anyway, so nobody believes in those things. And nobody's, back then they would never believe that their own sad thoughts is their crops or whatever. But yeah, um, I went on a tangent.
No, that's great stuff right there. And I mean, again, before I toss the mic back to you, that all ties into why I really thought we should speak about some of that because whether it's what's occurring there, like you said, or people in general, I mean, Some people, like you said, can't deal with the quiet in their mind because you have to tackle your thoughts. And something that is super important for everybody out there is at the end of the day, you got to be able to look in the mirror at the man or the woman that, is staring back at you. You got to make peace with that. Okay. And
Hmm.
when you go into a dark area or the darkness, everyone's got to go into the darkness. At the end of the day, you got to make peace with it and then just come out, on the other side and such. So, like you said, but a lot of people can't really delve into that aspect. And if there's not a ton of noise and distractions around them, they can't focus. So, it's still energy aspects. So, like you said, I mean, I used to be uh, first to say it, a punk in my younger days when I was doing more of the acting and modeling and stuff. I was super loyal to my friends and people around me, but I don't know if someone had a problem with me. I was gonna troll the living crap out of them back and just go out of my way to kind of be a putz, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
putting out a bunch of negative energy like that and stuff. I was always getting into confrontations, whether it was out at clubs or on photo shoot sets or out of the bars. And of course, when you're going around, just being a dink and putting out the negative energy, a bunch of stuff rolls down on you. But
Yep.
8, 9 years now, I've been working on being a good person and putting out positive information and positive vibes and chilling with other people that are positive vibes and low key and distancing stress and all this negativity. And I just noticed such a massive difference in like my life and stuff. I still have financial issues just like everybody else. My body's still destroyed, but I'm much happier than I ever was. And just little simple things now, like, chilling with like a raven outside that comes over and eats peanuts out of my hand and things like that are things that I enjoy and that they're so simple. But I feel like back when I was being a punk and stuff like that, I would have never even gave two thoughts to that. And I don't think that bird would have wanted to be around me because I don't think I wanted to be around myself. So the reason I said that is just like you were saying with the energy aspects. If you got so many generations of negative energy in an area, I don't know how long that stuff stays around. I do not specialize in the paranormal. I mean, I do
As
know.
long as there's somebody putting energy into it, as long as you're thinking this place is cursed, it will be, because that's what happens. That's you have to think, okay, this land will get better. This will get better. This will all get better, and it will get better. But you have to be in that mindset. And as long as bad things are happening around you, nobody can get out of that loop that they get trapped in to think things are going to get better.
Mhm.
So until people stop believing in curses, which is most of the time what happens, that it isn't like, it's not that people just stop believing in that sort of thing, or whatever. And that's all, that also cuts off the power to that. So if you stop believing that it's cursed, like, it's what mostly happens through generations of people. Oh, that's bullcrap. It's not cursed. So that actually kills the curse, because nobody believes it anymore.
Yes, exactly. That's
Yeah.
so great stuff right there. And did you want to potentially dive into some of the historical aspects that you learned about what the actual witches in this area were doing before they got screwed over, more or less?
Yeah, like it's um there's a lot of history with witches in Kentucky in general. They actually still have a witch festival. It's the Battletown Witch Festival, and it's the last Saturday in October, which would have been um this last Saturday. So they actually, and it's actually to, it's crazy. It's actually to memorialize that witch that they burned. That's that first witch, which I'm not laughing, but it's just so funny to me. We're like, well, we burned this lady in this place, so let's throw a festival every year to remember it. Like, and they talked to, and it's Lee Schmock. It's who it was, and she's supposed to be the first witch burned in Kentucky. Um, and she wasn't tried or anything. She was supposed to be a healer who could see the future. She could cure the sick. And like they said, that that people would go to her and pay her for her services. Um, Witches in general in old Appalachia, witches, they went to church with you. They were part of the community. Everybody knew who the local witch was. It was not. It's not like a really big deal. It was it was something that everybody knew about. But like, and this is the problem with that, when, like I said, when something happens, she was a healer and she could see the future. Again, people would pay her for her services. So she went into town one day, and there was a conversation, I guess, about a baby, and she was like, you know, uh, they told her, or she told them she wanted to hold the baby, and they wouldn't let her. And then the baby, but she was a healer. She knew something was wrong with the baby. Same thing. There was a horse in town, that she told them something was wrong with the horse, and then a couple days later, the horse. And that's when, of course, you've got these gifts that everybody uses when it's to their advantage. But if you go and tell somebody that this is going to happen, um, and then it happens, people, oh my God, she cursed us, and not that they go right for the fact that she can see the future, that she was trying to warn you that something was wrong, and you went right to being cursed, and they thought she was cursed. So they went to her house one night and bound her and drug her out to the smokehouse, and they lit her on fire. So she was technically the first witch that was burned, in Kentucky. And I don't remember if they said, I don't remember what year that was exactly. But then in Louisville, Kentucky, um, let's see. And that was in Meade County, where Lee Schmock was from. And again, they have the Battletown Witch Festival in her honor, just for that. But then there is the Witches Tree in Louisville, Kentucky, which in 1889 it was a place of like worship, or they said the witches would gather around it in town, and they would all congregate there, and they would have their little spells, and um they would do their little, whatever they did, and everybody was fine with it. But then they were going to have a May Day festival, and they were going to cut the tree down, to use as a maypole in the May Day festival. And the witches were like, no, if you do this, we're gonna curse the town. And they were like, whatever. So they cut the tree down. And 11 months to the day, I think it was, or at least 11 months later, maybe it was the day, maybe it wasn't, I don't remember. But it was 11 months later, a tornado hit the county and actually 26 people and injured over 200 people. And then um, later on, lightning had hit the tree, and a new tree had actually formed in the stump of the old one. So it actually grew back. So it came in, tornado hit, 76 people, injured 200, and then lightning hit the tree or hit the stump, and a new tree grew back in the spot. And if you look up a picture of the witch's tree, it's actually pretty gnarly looking. Like, it's a wild looking tree. And local covens and local witches still use it in Kentucky to this day. There's a lot of history buffs and paranormal enthusiasts that like to visit the place. I think they have like because apparently Louisville has a lot of haunted spots, or a lot of like local ghost stories, I guess. And yeah, but they also and then there were two women accused of witchcraft, and I don't remember the date. I didn't write the date down for that, but there were two women that were accused of witchcraft in Paducah County, and they were actually burned twice at the stake. They were burned once, and I don't remember if they said they got away or if the fire went out, but they got away, and they caught them again and put them back in the fire, and the fire went out. And because they survived twice in this fire that wouldn't burn them, um, the town actually called for them to be freed. So they freed them instead, which is very lucky for them. Hopefully that was just wet wood, or maybe they were witches. And to this day, they were talking about there was supposed to be a battle between the townsfolk somewhere in Kentucky and these witches that lived in the mountains at one time. Something had happened between them. Again, they used these witches as healers. Um, you know, I would say, I wouldn't, the fortune tellers, whatever they wanted to do. A lot of time it was just mostly healing people, because a lot of them knew the herbs in the woods. But there started to be more of them, and that, I guess, the local town people either thought they were becoming too powerful. They said one year that the townspeople's crops didn't do really well, but the witches' crops did. And it was just because of the way they tilled their land. They didn't grow the same. The people and the witches that were supposedly out there growing their stuff, they grew like the Cherokee people did. They did a lot of stuff like the natives did. They grew a lot. So um they actually had a way of like just tending to their fields differently. And so their stuff survived when the townspeople didn't. And of course, the townspeople were like, they've cursed us. Of course, it's always a curse when something bad happens to you and not somebody else. Um, and so they thought that these witches were becoming too powerful, like they were trying to sabotage them. So they decided to go to war with them. And according to what I could find, that they basically just wiped them out. They came in on them at night, and just kind of wiped everybody out, did what they could. So those that survived escaped to the mountains. Um, people say they don't really know what happened to them, but there's still all these other, well, to this day, there's still supposed to be 3 covens of witches that live in Kentucky. Um, they call them, a lot of people still call them the Kentucky devil worshippers, which I think is so funny. Um, which is, it's Clack Mountain, Kentucky, which is exactly where, um, well, it's near where, I guess where that was supposed to have went on, where the battle was, or where this went on. So it's close to the same place, and there's supposed to be still 3 covens of witches there, in Rowan and Rowan Carter County and Elliott County, and in Booneville or Beattyville area. And then there's one which I thought was cool in Wolfe County, Kentucky, and they have a really big natural bridge out there, and there's supposed to be a coven of witches that are in that area. And um yeah, they said they're not as much, they're not, I guess they're not as willing to. Some point there was just like, it was like the church turned on everybody, and it was no longer okay to be a witch. It was all of a sudden, it seemed like people like regressed sometime between, the 1950s and now, or sometime. It just seemed like people just didn't they weren't okay with the witchcraft anymore. They weren't okay with people calling themselves witches. It was like the church had changed, even though these same people that were witches went to church, every Sunday with these same folks. It was just something changed. And there was actually a case in Kentucky. Mary Edwards, she was accused of witchcraft in, let's see, Hart County, Kentucky. She was accused of witchcraft, and um, she was a member of the church, right? So half the church sided with her, and the other half was against her. But she was actually tried, and she was acquitted, and it actually divided their church. So I think something like that probably happened. I would say, I can only guess, I can only assume. But I would say something like that. It was the same reason why everybody stopped using, it was devil worship. Somebody got butt hurt over something that didn't even, either the spell didn't work right, or the witch, or they just accused somebody of being a witch, and it just, I don't know.
No, that's
Um,
great stuff right there. I appreciate all that. That's a ton of information that I had no clue about. And again, I just think that ties into what's really occurring in Kentucky, Tennessee, especially in the LBL area. And I think it's definitely something that yourself, myself, the North American Dogman Project should really be keeping an open ear to, and trying to see more paranormal type aspects or historical aspects like you were referring to right there.
I'm really willing to dig that. I'm like just going into that tangent about like, when did it stop being okay? Because even in the Andy Griffith show, there's an episode where the Darlings come down and they're talking to Andy. And Mr. Darling, he's like, yeah, well, I asked my local witch at church this Sunday. He asked her something about, you remember, he saw an owl or whatever it was, and he thought he thought he had a curse on him or something along those lines. And he talked about the witches being at church, and he asked the witch at church, something. And when did witchcraft become such an awful thing again? Because at one point people stopped calling it witchcraft and they started calling it granny magic, which is what they call it around these parts, like in the Appalachians around here. That's what they call it, is granny magic. They don't really call it like witchcraft. She's granny magic, which sounds
Right.
way better than witchcraft. But I'm like, at some point, somebody's like, you can't say that no more. At some point, it was not okay. At some point, it was okay to have these witches and to have the witchcraft and to use the witchcraft in town. And at some point, somewhere, everywhere, it was just not okay to to be a witch or to practice witchcraft anymore. Or maybe
Right.
they just stopped talking about it. I don't know. I don't think I've ever really thought about it until now. Just, I've never really, I guess I've never really been like, I guess in it where I'm trying to focus on like a timeline of things that are going on. And it just seems weird that at some point, like in the 40s, it was okay to be a witch in the woods and still go to church and everybody was cool. And then at some point after that, everybody was like, oh, witchcraft.
I don't really know a ton about religion because I'm spiritual, not religious. So I've been updated always through, biblical stuff through our scientific team, our historians that specialize in biblical aspects or the occult and such. So I was actually, before I let you go, this I think you'll find interesting as well. Our historian that specializes in religion was saying that the whole terminology, meaning, again, like I don't even like to talk this stuff because I just talk like Dogman and things, but like for example, 666 doesn't always necessarily solidify meaning like the mark of the beast and such. And he was
It's a
saying,
magic number.
yes, he was saying in modern day Christianity is when it started becoming anything that didn't look normal or didn't appear to be normal. So fast forward to now, whether I have crazy rainbow hair colors in my hair or paint my fingernails, nose ring, oh, you worship the devil, he's satanic. Why? Because it all boils back to what I'm going to say right
Well,
now, is that it to people that are out of the norm. So back then, things that were not normal looking, okay, so bats, oh my gosh, it's part of the devil, and things like
Well,
that.
anything not considered in a religious aspect, and this is why people say that America doesn't run on the church, and okay, that's a lie. We're still the church. We're still part of the church. Anything that's not considered Christian or that goes in line with a Christian, basis is considered Satanism, no matter what
Yes.
it is, no matter what it occurs. If it doesn't say, if the Christians say it's not okay, then it's considered Satanism, no matter what it is. It's either paganism is what they used to call it, but now they just call it satanic or Satanism, which is it's crazy because like you're talking about the 666. If you translate, well, they didn't have English, but if you go back and like see where 666 actually started from, it kind of like it was a letter, really not a number to begin
Hmm.
with anyway, and it wasn't, and it doesn't even translate the same. And that's the problem with a lot of the religion now. None of it translated right. Somebody was there trying to write what they thought somebody told them down, and they didn't translate it right. There was no words for what they just said, so they just translated it the best they could. That's all.
100%. That's why I brought that up, is just to tie it into, I think, because like you were saying, when you're like, oh, well, what happened for it to not more or less be cool to quote unquote be a witch anymore? I think it all falls kind of into that, man. It seems around that time frame, you got the werewolf purges, you got the witch trials. I mean, all around that point in time. So more or less, I kind of think that it's probably what happened. And
Well,
around,
it's
yeah.
it's the church. I
Yeah.
mean, I
Crazy
mean, a
stuff for
lot of it
sure.
is like, like there's it's crazy because everybody that takes everything one part of the Bible so serious, and then they don't take the rest of it. Like, like we were talking about last week or the week before last or whatever, the word abomination. It does not translate back. If you look at the word abomination and what it meant, like OA or make or something, the word actually just means odd or weird,
Yes,
not
but you're
normal. It
abomination
actually,
now.
yeah,
Yes.
abomination. It sounds awful because
Yes.
we were taught that meant
Sounds like the Toxic
Awful.
Avenger or something. What an
Abomination.
abomination! I
And I think
am
it's
the
literally got
Toxic
because
Avenger.
I just love that movie. Oh my God. Um,
But no, straight out, it's just all so crazy. But no, I appreciate you again
yeah.
sitting down with us because you're right down in the heart of the chaos down in that area, and you always come in with some great information. So I do appreciate that always, and I look forward to our future collaborations as well. And definitely keep an open ear for all that stuff for sure, because I think it's correlating somehow for sure.
Well, and again, if you want to check out, if anybody wants to check out a really cool place, I guess, to go as far as like paranormal stuff goes, Louisville, Kentucky has a lot of stuff going on to haunted graveyards. They have a haunted cave, but it's on private property. But and they have again that witch tree, the witch's tree, which is again, it's still there. It's growing. People still use it. It's on the corner of 6th Street and Park Avenue in Louisville, Kentucky. If anybody needs to know.
That's pretty cool right there. And actually, again, with this messed up thing, I'm glad this is no longer a thing, but you must have heard about this McKinley Manor down in your area. That dude was straight up crazily insane. It was like a torture chamber that this dude like set up. And for y'all to be able to get up in there, he would randomly pick people and do this huge like psychological background to see how easily you scared and stuff. And if you've never heard about that, he's actually in prison right now for attempting, I believe, to unalive his girlfriend or wife or something. But yes, this place called McKinley Manor began in Tennessee in the middle of freaking nowhere. And it was absolutely something out of a dang horror movie. He ended up moving it to another spot afterwards. But you should look into that place. It's no longer around, but it was so disturbing. I even called y'all sheriff one time just to be like, look, you got to be aware of this dude, correct? And she was like, yeah, we're just waiting for him to do something we can nail him on. But yeah, some messed up stuff.
Yeah, okay, now, yeah, I wrote that down. So we can, I like weird stuff in Tennessee. I can imagine being a bad energy. Like if you have good energy here, like it's very plentiful, very, very deep. And I can imagine having like a negative response and being able to carry that, out in the woods and just have it's eerie out here. There's a lot of space and there's nothing out here. So it's a good place to like, for somebody to go and be weird.
Yeah, so this place is right here. It's called McCamey Manor. It's Lawrence County, Tennessee. And like I said, this dude is straight up considered insane. And he's got some pretty messed up stuff. And like I said, his name's Russ McCamey, okay? And it's supposed to be the world's most famous haunted intense attraction. But yeah, I definitely suggest if you do go near there to be careful because it's still open, but this dude was just arrested for attempted unaliving, okay? So yeah, and that's not good stuff. And I can't even believe that was open for so long, but that is straight up. If people want real life nightmare fuel, just watch some of the things with that right there. So
Uh, it said, I thought it said right here that the charges were dropped against.
were they?
Yeah.
Check out some of
Ooh.
he's still got some other crazy shady stuff, so that might be why that place is still open. But yeah, just dive into that dude. He is straight up a freaking maniac, more or less.
I'm like, yeah, tell us that you're psychotic without telling us you're psychotic.
Because literally you can't once you sign up, you can't get out of it until you finish the whole entire time frame, and they like literally put you in things that like it's something out of Saw, and dude, it's literally beyond insanity. I mean, I don't even understand how someone could think that up. I mean, I can understand
And
for a movie here and there, but this dude had a whole manor. Okay, so
even the weirdest people have a safe word. There should be a safe word. I mean, it's like, all right, I'm
not for
out,
this son of a bee. He just straight up tortured you until it was done, and literally you had signed the paperwork saying it was okay to be tortured, more or less. And I can't remember how long the application was, but it's like 56 pages or something.
50 Shades of Gross.
Yeah, so, but again, like I said, thanks for popping in tonight, but I definitely highly suggest you check that out for sure.
Yeah, I've got it looked up now. I'll definitely be reading in on that. I think I heard about that. I think I know. Like the more I'm reading, I'm like, oh, I know what this is. Yeah. Like, look, goes and signs up for that? Who goes and like, they're like, hey, put me down for one round of torture, please.
If you did make it this far in the video tonight, you really are a legend, and I do appreciate you. If you could like, subscribe, comment, and feed the algorithm quality content, I do greatly appreciate you. I will catch you on the flip side.